Providing insights to help you grow your business, improve yourself, and add value to those around you. You're listening to the Success is a Choice podcast, where you get a peek into the lives of industry leaders as they share their stories with you.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Success is a Choice podcasting network. I am your host for today. Jamy Bechler is my name. And hey, before we get to today's guest, I want to remind you that today's episode is made possible by the leadershipplaybook.com, the leadershipplaybook.com. Everybody wants a stronger culture, better teammates, and positive leaders. And one way that you might be able to get that is using a tool like the leadershipplaybook.com. Well, today's guest is a man who has done a lot of things in his career. Many of you know him, especially if you're in high school athletics. Scott Garvis is joining us. He is a longtime high school athletic director in the state of Iowa. He's a Hall of Famer. He's an author. He's a podcast host. He works for Bound, which is taking over the high school athletics by storm. And
by leaps and bounds.
By leaps and bounds. I missed it. I'm not as good of a podcast host as you.
No,
Scott,
not at all. You are.
I should have had that. He's also the commissioner of the Iowa Alliance Conference. Scott Jarvis, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. So you say that about the podcast. I loved listening to your podcast. I love everything that you do. Had Jamy now come to a couple of different conferences that we've had here in Iowa. So I appreciate the message that you share with everybody. So thank you for what you do.
Well, I appreciate that, Scott. Yeah, it's been fun coming out to Iowa and getting to meet so many high school athletic directors and so many students. And it's been great working. You know, you've gotten me hooked up and connected with a lot of people out there. And we're working with a lot of schools out there. We just mentioned the leadershipplaybook.com online program. We're working with your conference, but we're working with a lot of other schools in Iowa as well. So that's been fun and got to speak at the Iowa AD's conference, the keynote speaker last year. So that was a great time, even though I was going head to head. At the same time, Caitlin Clark was playing in the NCAA tournament.
I know.
So normally I only have half of the audience that isn't paying attention to me, but in Iowa, it was about 95% of the people were.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
Maybe too low. I know 99% maybe were paying attention to Caitlin Clark. But our podcast is called Success is a Choice. That's something that's important to us, but I know success is important to you, whether it's you as a high school administrator, you as an entrepreneur, but just as a leader in general. Talk to us a little bit about how you view success.
Yeah, I know. And it's probably different than most. I always think about, like, in the coaching realm, it's always about the championships, the trophies. But for me as an athletic administrator and just my thoughts on just growth, it's really how can I, as a leader, add value to my coaches, to my student athletes? How can I create opportunities for my coaches, for my student athletes, for anyone I lead? And then how can I build relationships with those people? To me, it's really about leaving that legacy that impacts others in meaningful ways. And I always think about, Jamy, I know that you've talked about this quote too, but Maya Angelou always said, if you're going to live, leave a legacy, make a mark on the world that can't be erased. True success is truly when you've led and you've led people to continue to thrive and grow, even after your role as a leader or your impact with them has moved on. You've left that lasting impact. And it's not about the wins and losses. It's about the impact in the what you leave on their heart. How do you capture those those people's hearts. And that's what success means to me. How can I leave that impact? How can I add value to others? How can I create opportunities for others to get better? And how can I build relationships and make sure I'm building positive, strong relationships with those that I lead?
So I love that. That sounds awesome. But you've been a longtime high school AD. You now work with so many schools, so many athletic directors, so many educators, coaches, teachers out there. How can we actually take that from theory and put it into practical use? How can people actually leave an impact and leave that legacy?
Well, I say this all the time, Jamie, is like, time is the most probably precious commodity that we have. And I think that we do that, how we gain that success. And we talk about, how do we add value, create opportunities? It all is your time. How are you investing your time in others? And that's what I think is the most important part of that is I'm investing time in creating opportunities for others. I'm investing in time in people and building those relationships. And I'm investing in that adding value to people, adding value for those that I get the opportunity to run across, so just like Jamie, I've got to meet you a number of years ago, and, you're just somebody that I admire and look up to, and the things that you do, I sometimes, there's many times like, gosh, I want to do that. Like Jamy Bechler did. That's a great idea. I want to emulate what Jamy Bechler does. And I know you'd be like, well, that's crazy. Why would you ever do that? But truly, we always look to other people in whatever we do in athletics, as coaches, as athletic administrators, or in the business roles as CEO. If I'm a CEO of a company, like I just saw, CEO from, Ford Motor Company did this great initiative. I want to go do that. So it's all about how we're investing our time and learning and growing as leaders. And we can't do that without investing that time.
So what are some ways that you're investing in yourself and developing yourself even more, filling up your tank so that, back in the day when you were actually a high school athletic director, you could pour out, but now you're able to pour out into so many different schools and people that you're working with, but you have to fill up your tank and be stronger so that you can help other people be strong. What are some of the ways you're doing that now?
Yeah. I would be, to be completely honest with you, I love your podcast. I would be my own podcast. I learn something from every guest I have on. And I know it sounds crazy. Like if nobody listens to my podcast, which not very many people do, but when they do, I learn something from every guest that I have. And that I find that so valuable in hosting that and going and speaking. And like today I'm teaching here at the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union. We're having a class. We're teaching about assessment and how we evaluate our coaches within our programs and how important that is. And we talk about it takes time. It takes the investment of you building that trust with your coach and how important that is, that relationship of like, not only are we investing time and going to watch practice, but we're having one-on-one conversations with our coaches. I love this quote by Arthur Ashe, and it says, trust can only be built over the passage of time. I love that quote. And it is so true. So if we ever want to build trust and we want to go and invest and assess coaches, we got to build that trust. And again, it all takes time. It's time. We have to invest our time in the things that we value.
Yeah. And that's a great point too, because so many times as a high school AD or even a college AD, or you could be a manager, supervisor, CEO in a business setting, we do these assessments or these evaluations. We have these tools, and it's almost always at the end of something, or it's at the end of 3 months or at the end of the year or whatever it is. And we don't really do anything to build up trust and to evaluate and assess and help them grow and develop between assessments sometimes. And so we miss out sometimes, whether it's coaches to players or bosses to their employees.
Yeah. And Jamie, you bring up a good point there. And I had a great mentor when I was at Muscatine High School. Longtime AD, took over as a principal, hired this young, dumb athletic director from MFL Marmac High School from up in the middle of nowhere. And I remember in my office, and we can get caught up in the management and the daily grind of leadership. It's paperwork and compliance and all these different things we got to do. But at the end of the day, he came in one day, he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I'm trying to get a bus. I got to fill out this thing. I got to hire a new assistant football coach, and I got, girls basketball, and I got to get officials for tomorrow night." He's like, "Get your butt out of the back of that chair and go out and watch practices. You got to go out and be with people." And it's something that's always stuck with me when I'm sitting here trying to manage something on my computer or trying to find officials. I'm like, and there's opportunities for me to go out and interact with the people that I love and care about, my coaches, my student athletes. I need to go out and do that. And it's hard. It's hard to find that time, but you got to force yourself, and you got to like find the time. And somebody asked me this question, and I was kind of at a loss for words. I go, how are you intentional in your leadership? And I was like, ugh. I probably looked like a complete idiot, because I was like, I never thought about that. But when I really thought about it, I was like, it's with my time. It's blocking off time. Like, I'm going to prepare for my podcast at this time. And now we all know in leadership, stuff pops up on you and you can't get to it, but I'm always putting that time. Go watch practice. Hey, prepare for their coaches, professional development for next week. Do your student athletic leadership council preparation so you're ready to teach something to your kids. It's all about investing that time, and it's so, so important.
And that's a good point too, in terms of obviously you've got to be competent in the X's and O's of being a manager, or the X's and O's of being an athletic director. You have to dot the I's, cross the T's, because if you're not competent, no one will trust you and you won't have your job very long. But also, I've seen a lot of people that are extremely competent in those managerial tasks, but they don't invest into people. And so then people don't trust them. They may be like, "Oh yeah, the buses never pass each other, or we always have referees, or things always run smoothly." But when issues pop up, when there's parent issues, coaches issue, player issues, sportsmanship issues, that AD is not really the leader that they need to be, but they're really good at being competent. And, the best leaders are going to be competent, and they're going to be people, investing in people as well. But that's tough as an AD, because a lot of people are overworked, maybe underpaid, or at least underpaid for the amount of hours that they put in, definitely underappreciated sometimes. But what are some ways that you've seen, either you've done this or you've seen ADs invest in the student athlete?
Yeah, I was actually just talking about that this morning in the class I was teaching. Is I would say one of the things that I did with my student athletes, if I started that student athlete advisory council, maybe one of the most important things I did as an athletic director, because that gave me the opportunity to still coach. And that was something I really, really missed, was the interaction with the kids. But it also provided me the opportunity to get feedback from our student athletes, what they thought, what their perception of our athletic department was. And then the opportunity just to grow and lead them and talk about, like, if we were having issues at games, like sportsmanship, I'm like, all right, hey, what are we going to do? This is a problem. I tell the kids all the time, I go, the most fun I have as an athletic director is when I get to go see you play, and I get to see you accomplish the goals that you want to do. But when I'm dealing with the crowd acting like knuckleheads, I don't get to do the one thing in my job that I really love is seeing you perform and seeing you excel. Really sitting down with kids and like, here's our expectations. And, we have our front row, like, yes, everybody else has their front row crew. I'm like, here's what I expect of you. I want you to lead this, and I want you to be the one accountable for everybody else. Just like in leadership, one thing I was never very good at as a leader, still probably need to do better job of, is delegation. So delegating tasks to people. And Jamie just talked about it. And I was out at the Wisconsin Athletic Director Conference, and I was talking to the administrative assistants, and you talked about that trust. And it makes me think too, like, when you have a really good administrative assistant who can take on some of those roles and take away, and you can delegate that and trust them that they're going to do it. And then you can build that trust in your community, because the officials are always there, the buses are always there, that management duties can slide off you a little bit so that you can do those other things that you need to do to be a great leader. That doesn't completely vacate you from doing those management duties, but it helps. And again, just going back to the Student Athletic Advisory Council, I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't do a better job of delegating, because gosh, it takes time. I got to, make sure that we get the kids there. I got to find the time to do it. We got to, prepare. But I would go back to Jamy, then using, your leadership playbook. It's a great way for me to take away, like, okay, I got to have this time to create something, some kind of curriculum, or we're going to talk about this. I can pull up the leadership playbook and play a video, and then we can have discussion afterwards. It makes it a lot easier to do things like that with your program.
Well, I appreciate the shout out there. And, but you're right about delegating. And, when I was a high school athletic director, I had an amazing secretary. I had an amazing assistant AD, and they got things done very effectively. And I look good. People are like, oh man, that office runs smoothly. And it wasn't really because of me. We just got the right people on the bus and the right seats on the bus. And, they did a great job. But still, at the end of the day, though, delegating tasks does not mean you're delegating responsibility. And so you still have to make sure that people are doing what they need to do when they need to do it, but also that they're equipped with the resources to do their job. And a lot of times as ADs or leaders, we don't equip our people with the right resources or support even, and especially, delegating. Well, I'll delegate. You said you struggle with delegation. I've struggled with delegation too. And nobody does it the way we would do it. And so then sometimes we're sitting around, and if I delegate something to Scott and he screws up, I'm the first one to jump down your throat about, oh, you should have done it this way. Oh, if you'd done it my way. Well, no, you've got to equip them to have the tools to be able to do it in a way that fits their personality as well, and let them grow. Don't be so quick to set them up for failure, set them up for success.
Yeah. And I think that leads, to this discussion too, Jim. Like, there's so many times in athletics as ADs, for coaches, for student athletes, we go lead. We vote for a captain on the team, like, go do it. And we do. And some kids are like, we don't even know what that means. So are we spending the time to teach them, okay, here's our expectations of you as a leader. Here's what we need from you to do. Same with our coaches. Are we spending time with them in professional development? Here are expectations. Here we're facilitating questions. I would tell you with my PD, with coaches, the one thing that we talked about trust earlier. The one thing that I felt like more than anything, that professional development, those facilitation of discussions that coaches were dealing with, whether it was parent issues, whether it was dealing with a difficult athlete, those discussions in that room built a level of trust within our athletic department that was so powerful. I still get goosebumps even thinking about it, because again, we go back to that time that we spend with others and how that develops trust. And then when we sit down and talk about, like, here's the issues we're having and here's what we're dealing with, and the coach is like, oh, I have that issue too. Here's what I do. And then they start talking. I think we talked about it a little bit this morning, is like, now that our coaches are not always in our building, we've lost some of that. Like, the coaches are in between classes, or, talking to each other. How was the game last night? We've lost some of that. So as ADs, as leaders within our athletic department, we got to create those opportunities again, because we don't always have them. And we have to be even more intentional now, because I think sometimes that just happened because of the proximity of all the coaches being in the same building. It's just not that way anymore. So we have to, as leaders within our departments, make sure that we're creating those opportunities, creating value, and building relationships.
Yeah. And I know very few people like meetings or like being told to do something or get-togethers or whatever. But if there's a way as a leader, you can figure out ways to have some professional development with your staff, because it's not always easy to just get to a conference or to spend $500 or $1,000 for hotels and all that kind of stuff to get to a conference. When I took over as an AD, one of the things we did was we went to the Booster Club and got them to provide us money for staff meetings, for food and for professional development at our staff meetings. So we didn't have to leave the building. And we did what you were telling me made me think about what we used to do, but we would have almost think tanks where they would teach one another, hey, what Scott's going through might be something that we all can learn. And we'd give them a topic from week to week or month to month, whatever our meetings were. And they would bring some ideas. And so we would share and have professional development sessions there. And it doesn't have to be a weekly meeting, but don't have to look at meetings as just, all right, we're going to go through a bunch of itinerary things that could have been an email. Maybe you could do some professional development where you all can grow and learn together.
And so many times as an AD, like, you're just like, I don't have the time to do that. Like, I would tell you this, when I went through that process, like, there'd be sometimes I'd have a coach be like, hey, coach, you've done a great job with, turning your program around. Can you just talk about what you think some of the essential things that you did to turn that program around? Or another coach, I'd like, you have great parent relationships. How do you do that? How do you align your parents, your coach? How do you do that? And so I started, again, what I wasn't good at, delegating to coaches. And I'm going to tell you what, they were amazing. Or just having our coaches just get up and just ask this simple question. Why do you coach? Why do you do what you do? And just to get them up there and talk about it, powerful.
Well, we all in those staff meetings have that coach that pretty much puts his arms, crosses his arms, sits back in his chair, or doesn't want to be there. He's heard it all before. You can't help me. None of that kind of stuff. Well, if you could actually get them, not necessarily teaching, but talking for 5 to 10 minutes about something they're passionate about, or they really do a great job in the weight room, or they really do a good job with captains, or whatever it is, talking about that for 5 to 10 minutes, at least at one meeting, they actually might be engaged. Now, the rest of the meetings, they go back to crossing their arms, but you start baby steps. But I've seen that work. I've seen that work in my own life, that you get people talking in different meetings. It's not always the same person talking, and all of a sudden you have more engagement in all of your meetings, but it's going to take a few meetings to get to that point.
Yeah. And I would say that, just start. You just start doing it. Even if you got 2 or 3 people, just start. It will grow.
So you're the author of The DNA of an AD. I think I got that right. The DNA of an AD. If you're an athletic of an AD, yes. So now, where'd you get that idea?
Jamie, my next one is being an AD and having ADD. That's my next one.
Okay. I thought you were going to say the ABCs of an AD.
Right. ABC. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's we're going down a ridiculous path here, which a rabbit hole here. But your book, the DNA of an AD, where'd you come up with that idea? I like the title. I like the idea for the book. I've seen it all over the place. You speak at so many conferences. You hand these books out, you get these books in people's hands because you truly want to help. But where'd that idea come from?
It's crazy as it sounds. We were on the way to our NIAAA Section 4 meeting, and we were trying to come up with a theme for our Iowa High School Athletic Director Conference. And Brett Butcher, who is the athletic director at Dallas Center Grimes, said, hey, how about we do the DNA of an AD? I'm like, oh, that's great. He goes, hey, can I write a book on that? And he goes, yeah. So I always have to give him credit for that, because he always asks me for royalties on the book.
I'd rather give credit than royalties.
Right. Yeah. So that was how we came up with it. And then we just sat in the car, literally, and there was 5 of us in the car. And we talked about what are all the characteristics that we feel, make up a great athletic director. And so we came up with, we were just in the car. We came up with 90 some different characteristics to be an effective athletic director. So I kind of put it into 12 different categories, but we talked about those. And I reached out to ADs from across the country, across the world, and said, hey, what does, being loyal to you mean? What does loyal mean to you as an athletic director? What does being loyal with your coaching staff, with your student athletes? We talked about all those things, and it was I feel like a facilitator, maybe more than an author, but just some great perspectives from athletic directors all over the world, really, in the book.
Well, you're a bigwig in a company called Bound, which is a lot of high schools are using that. So I want you to talk a little bit about Bound, but I know Bound, to me, when I think of Bound, I think of Scott Jarvis, and I think of what you give away at all the trade shows, at the convention halls, the vendor booths. Right. You give away this barbecue or meat seasoning called Fist. And I load up on that. I can't wait to see you guys again, so I can get another, caseload of that kind of stuff. But what is Bound?
So, and actually, I got to meet with Sam Schill, who is our CEO, in 2018, and we just talked about, what does it mean to be an athletic director? What is it like? And I just said it's chaos, 24/7. you're connected to your job all the time. And he said, well, what is one thing that we could do to help athletic directors? I'm like, what can you do to save us time? What can you do to give us the opportunity to do those things that, Jamy, we've talked about all this whole podcast? What can you do to take away some of this management responsibility, some of these mundane tasks that I do every day, and have the time to do professional development for coaches, have a student athletic advisory council, lead more, manage less? And we talked about it has to be time. We need more time. So we developed software that helps athletic directors with their daily lives as an athletic director. So scheduling, making that fast, effective, and efficient. Student registration, communication with our coaches, our student athletes, our parents. We've got basically solutions for like 20 different things within your athletic department in one platform that all interconnects. So you're not having to enter it on 18 different, platforms. You're entering it into one. It all shares information. And again, it's all about it being efficient as an AD so you can lead versus just manage your athletic department.
Very cool. And Scott is available. So if you're having a conference, if you're have coaches meetings, whatever, he is great at talking to coaches, ADs, leaders, even in a corporation. It might be the DNA of an AD, but it's really just leadership. It's really just being a great manager, supervisor, leader. And it doesn't matter if you're in banking or if you're in education. Scott has something for you. So be sure to hit him up. Scott, Twitter, is that a good place to get you? Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Facebook, TikTok, whatever you want. So go ahead, check him out. We definitely appreciate Scott. We appreciate all he's done for years for student athletes, for coaches, coaching coaches. And now he's doing that in a multiple different avenues. So it's awesome to see all the impact that Scott is having on people everywhere. So Scott, we appreciate all that you do. Appreciate you joining us today. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jim. And again, thank you for everything you do. And I would just give Jamy a shout out. He does an absolute tremendous job speaking. He's come to numerous conferences for us now. So thank you for what you do and the message that you share, because we need more people out there that are sharing positive and good versus, there's plenty of garbage out there. We just need people pouring greatness into one another. Well, I appreciate that. And we appreciate all of you watching this on YouTube, on Rumble. We appreciate you if you're listening to this on an audio platform, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, any place that you get your audio podcast. Thank you for that. Please share this show with a friend of yours or even an enemy of yours. That's fine. Share it with anybody that you want. Be sure to like this or hit the little subscribe button, smash that screen, not too hard, but smash that little like button, bust your screen. But thanks so much. And until next time, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?